So, Fran, I would love to hear about your focus on direct access and how you decided to start teaching more about it.
I mean, to be honest, I think the appeal is returning to the importance of the therapist client relationship and really valuing that. So when I had done 30 years of psychodynamic psychotherapy and before I found IFS, and when I found IFS, it was like this big sigh of relief for many of my parts, not staying behind a blank screen, not feeling like my analytic parts had to be smarter than the client, not feeling like I was supposed to figure it out and then offer some fabulous insight. Just really relaxing those parts and trusting the client's system and the client's own self energy for healing. So, but I feel that the it's holding IFS within the therapeutic relationship, really valuing the therapeutic relationship, and now understanding that I'm either talking to a client's part. So, for example, like I'll probably talk about this in the workshop, but recently I had a consultation come to me. The person was upset because the therapist was concerned because the client wanted physical holding and was very much kind of entrenched about it. And of course, the therapist is saying, I don't physically hold and trying to, work with the parts. But the beauty of IFS is that you could, do direct access to that exile, really letting the one that wants holding feel like wanting to be held makes sense. Like you could so step into understanding what's being wanted and speak to it directly in a way that would likely relax the system. Um, so I just, it feels like things that felt we would have managers have reactions to that kind of an example. We would, want to pull away or think that's not okay or that's too dependent or something. When you understand you're just talking to a part inside someone, you can then speak to that part directly. But at the same time, it's an unblending technique. So the rest of the system is listening. I might even say that I know there's other parts of Susie that are listening, but I know that little one just wants more holding, and that makes so much sense to me. So it's a way of kind of being with whatever shows up, understanding it. I mean, I think that's part of what we get better at. Oh, that's just an exile that needs attention, or that's a protector that's just really, really, intense. And how can I value that protector? So just stepping in naturally. Oh, that protector's here, so I'm going to just talk directly to it. Just I'm going to know I'm talking to that part, and then using myself, you being comfortable using myself as the agent of change and healing, but being so much clearer about what's happening. So
Okay.
yeah, that's part of why I love it, I think, and why I feel like it's so important and why I continue to love it.
One of the things that I really appreciate about direct access is that it's really helpful for my parts to be able to be consciously embodied with my feelings. And sometimes I've noticed with IFS therapists, there's concern about staying blended, and there's a fear that doing that is harmful, and that we need to pull back from the emotions and constantly create space and separation. And I find that sometimes consciously blending is really valuable.
Right.
It's necessary to kind of wring out the sponge to have space to bring more self energy into it. So I'm curious about that. And if you facilitate people just by going within to do direct access, do you ever move people around to embody parts? What's your technique?
Well, I mean, when we're doing direct access, the therapist is talking directly. So if the client, but I think what you're also asking is it okay for the client to want to stay embodied, right? So that part, in order for it to be known and to feel like it's feeling understood, it wants to be fully there, and then having the therapist be in direct connection. So of course that's welcome. And then the therapist just is aware that you're talking to the part, and you can use language that says, oh, so you're Jen's part, that da 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 da, you, I want you to know you're totally welcome here, and the rest of Jen can be listening while you and I talk. Because then, if a therapist had concern, quote unquote, about maybe, where was this going to go, or maybe their parts are worried about, is it going to be too much, there's a way to do it staying very present to what's happening for the client. Sometimes I do invite embodying, or usually I'll just wait and see if the clients lead on that, right? What's the system needing or wanting? And then that's fine for it to stay embodied. That's great. And then that's the joy of coming to this workshop, because you'll get so comfortable with that fluidity. Oh, that's what's needed right here. So I'm just going to shift this way, and we'll just do this piece. And then we can see if more unblending is happening, if Jen can now talk with that protector herself, right? So that's what I mean about it's a very fluid process as you get more and more comfortable using the skills.
That's great.
Yeah. And it sounds wonderful. And I really find that there's such a direct healing, relational healing, like you're saying, that happens when you bring just curiosity towards a lot of time protectors that people have shame parts or critical parts about. And just by you bringing that curiosity, or even just that openness of like, this is happening for good reason. And I'm curious what kinds of clients you work with in your practice that need a lot of, holding because of shame, or like addiction, or, anything, any kind of behaviors that you see that you can tell that the direct access has like such a relieving quality for them because of how ashamed people can be because of their protectors.
I mean, I do a lot with trauma. So some of the complex trauma systems will have an eating disorder system as one of the protector systems in a complex trauma, and really fierce, critical self parts, judgy parts, fierce protectors that other parts in the system are scared of. So those are parts that yeah, that I'm stepping in and out of using explicit direct access. I mean, one of my earlier takeaways in getting more comfortable using direct access was understanding that for really entrenched traumatized systems, using explicit multiple sessions. Because when we go to the trainings, you see, Dick does it, it's fast, it's in and out, it seems like it works right away. But really, some of my clients, I've worked with some of their self-hating protectors that are really fierce. Multiple sessions in explicit direct access. Can I talk to your critic? Are you there? Why do you beat up so and so as much as you do? Tell me more. Just doing, and because those critics are like, I am not leaving my job, and the harder I do my job, the fiercer I am at the job, the better I'm protecting. And you have to really drop an agenda of change and engage and listen and develop a relationship with those fierce protectors. So that's really often how I see myself using a lot of direct access. Yeah.
That's very helpful. And seems like not only with trauma, but in many circumstances, direct access can be useful. And mostly what this is about is getting the clinician and practitioner comfortable with some of the language shifting that can happen, right? Because sometimes, right, sometimes, well, oftentimes we're talking to clients' parts and they're not aware of their being in a part, and you don't want to necessarily pull them out of their experience, but you want to subtly help their system become aware that they're in a part without having them to be conscious and shift to do
Exactly.
so. So
Right. And then you're doing more implicit, and you're just, yeah, you're talking to a protector, and you to tell me more about why you do what you do. And I want you to know, really want to understand, how you're trying to help. And So you're doing the protector interview, but you're just in conversation. You haven't, the client's not interviewing that part. You're, as the therapist, interviewing that part. And that's often how you start, early stage of the therapies, of a therapy, where you're just fluidly in a conversation. That's what I mean by IFS talk therapy. It looks like you're having just a conversation with the client, but as the clinician, oh, I'm interviewing this part that just feels like being angry is the way to be, and that's just, if you're not angry, then you're a wimp, and it's better to be angry. So we're just going to get, as the clinician, I'm just kind of schmoozing a bit, or just sort of trying to help that part feel it's welcome. If it's anger in particular, sometimes clients will have parts that don't like the anger, or don't think they should, or they might have parts that think more is better. And so in that way, I'm listening to what's a system of parts around. So that's another piece of the interview, so to speak. I'm understanding where it fits, but I'm doing that's all implicit direct access. I know I'm speaking to an angry part, and I'm listening. Who else is here? I'm mapping the system. And, I haven't asked the client yet, how do you feel towards that part?
I think it would be great just to speak really briefly, since we were already kind of talking about it, is how you work with polarizations through this work. I mean, it's a huge topic, but just like a glimpse into how you work with polarizations.
Oh, well, let's see. So I, when we were in the office, which, remember that, it was a big deal for me to get myself out of my chair, having been psychodynamically trained. But after a while, I really loved using the different chairs. So I would invite a client who had a polarization to sit in one chair or the other chair. And then I'm sitting in a chair, and I'll do a form of either explicit or implicit direct access with each of the parts in a polarization. And it was always helpful, because one, it often is fun. And so, but they're the clients embodying each part. Okay, they get permission to sort of embody one side of the polarization, then they embody the other, and I'm doing the interview. And they always learn something, and it's a great unblending, but it usually brings a little bit of fun and self-awareness with that, a little self-awareness in the fun. So that's one of my favorite ways to work with polarizations and direct access. Yeah.
Thank you, Fran, so much for doing this with us. We're really excited to be hosting you at IFSLA, and to just have, this fabulous interview, learning more about direct access and how it can positively influence our work with clients and make things actually much smoother.
And effective and powerful. Yeah.
Absolutely.